When it comes to categories of techniques that become popular, obviously the most popular one right now among anglers is swimming minnows. You know, it's become so popular with forward-facing sonar that, you know, a bait like the freeloader really launched that swimming minnow phenomenon just because of the way it moves in the water column. And then of course you have St. Croix designing rods around swimming minnows. And what a swimming minnow technique is throwing like a buoyant bait like this, like a freeloader, on a lighter jig head, and then pitching it out there, and then kind of working that bait through these schools of fish, and really watching that bait that entire time to see fish strike that. And you know, with this rod here, this is the Physyx rod from St. Croix. This was designed for swimming minnows, and it's a medium light fast. It really allows me to shake that minnow and get a lot of action out of that bait. And using that lighter head with that buoyant freeloader, this is my favorite presentation when it comes to swimming minnows. And it's not just a bass technique. You catch walleyes on it, pike, everything. It works in a lot of situations, whether you're fishing rocks, weeds, even open water. But it truly is a fun way to fish. You watch them strike, and believe me, everything loves that freeloader. That one came right out of the school and just smoked it. I tend to fish these baits above those fish's heads for sure. They see it, they come up and crack it. You don't want to, it's kind of a balancing act between being too high in the water column and too low. If you're reeling too fast, you certainly will be bringing that bait up in the water column. So I kind of swim it. If I notice on the forward-facing sonar that it's getting up too high in the water column, I'll just simply slow down my cadence. I don't necessarily stop reeling, but as you can see, that fish just inhaled that sucker. Look at this. That is a total inhale right there. You know, that's a 4-inch bait, and that thing just chowed it. Cool, look at that. I use various style heads when I'm fishing these freeloaders too. I use a swim style head like this. Like this is the hybrid swim head jig from BMC. I also use the sleek jig, but either way, I like a hook that's got a little bit longer shank so you get better penetration on that bait. That way when the fish come up and strike it, you've got plenty of gap in the hook and then plenty of strength on there. I really like these BMC jigs. There's a lot of new jigs coming out too that are tungsten. You can really see those, like the tungsten moon eye jigs. They've got a tungsten swim head jig. Very important if you're fishing with forward-facing sonar and when you're swimming these baits. You know, it may seem weird that I'm sitting in the back of the boat casting to these fish, but it's actually a little windy out here, and I want to be able to spot lock with my trolling motor and then really key in on these fish with my sonar on the pole and be able to cast right at them. Okay, and then once I get on them like this and I got one following, I'm just kind of hovering that bait and just swimming it back to the boat, just keeping the bait in the strike zone here, just trying to get one to come up and grab that bait. Now it's really buoyant, really light jig. I'm just swimming it right in front of their faces. If they start to lose interest, I drop that bait back down and then pop it a few more times and get it swimming again. Here we go, come on, eat it. You can tell the walleyes versus the smallmouth. The walleyes move a little slower in the water column. They're more steady pace. They kind of sit on structure more. Not that they're not predators and not really actively chasing down baits, but just their movements in the water I can tell, whereas the smallmouth, they're always up and down in the water column, whereas the walleyes are a little more steady, even though sometimes you'll see them spring into action. They're a little more steady in the water column versus the bass are up and all over the place. You'll see bass come up and feed on this bait up high, and especially smallmouth, they kind of work in wolf packs out here. You'll see these packs of smallmouth bass that'll come off this structure, eat bait, then they're back in the rocks, and there we go. Get on these fish here. Oh my gosh, just eat it. There he is. There we go. Chased it back, hit it almost all the way underneath the boat. But that's what's nice about being able to watch that bait and kind of float that bait and the buoyancy of that bait, and that's why it works so well. Again, another bait that was designed for bass but works extremely well for walleyes, and and really any species you fish, and it fishes really clean, so you can fish it over the top of weeds, through timber. It's very, very buoyant in the sense where you're not gonna get tangled up on anything you're fishing. So let me get this fish back in. The freeloader from Crush City not only has the buoyancy, but that tail. You can see that tail action that drives them nuts. So when I'm swimming that bait, if those fish are chasing, but let's say they're a little lethargic, you can give it a little pop and then kind of work that a little bit faster. And then as I'm popping that bait, that minnow swimming back and forth, and the buoyancy of that bait keeps that jig head in the water and drives fish wild.